So, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. My name is Anna, and of course, I'm the creator of the content that you view on here. The aim and purpose of these videos is to share the information that I've been able to gather around specific crystals and how we might use them from a metaphysical perspective. Now, part of the idea of sharing information is also to include content on the mineral information, where we can source the materials, and hopefully work out how to establish what is an authentic crystal, and I guess a little bit of bioprotection there, as well as developing our spiritual growth and understanding. Now, I am by no means an authority on all of this, and we're going to find this out today, in particular with the crystal that I purchased under the name of green mica. This has really challenged me as far as getting, I think, reliable information. So, as with all of my videos, I do put it out there to you, the listener or the viewer of the videos I create, to contribute your own information and what you know about a crystal that might be helpful to the rest of us. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look at what I call green mica. So the first thing to acknowledge, I guess, with the green mica towers, which of course I've named the video VERDELITE, is because I found that out as time progressed through my research. So either way, I was looking at a crystal called green mica, and it was interesting. I would say that this particular photograph we're looking at here doesn't truly represent the colour of the green. The image that I looked at and where I decided to buy the green mica, you could see more clearly that it was green and it had an interesting texture or patterning to it, if you like to call it that. And I didn't immediately pick up that we were looking at green tourmaline within this tower. But either way, what I will say is the pieces that I have managed to purchase, they have got more of a sort of olivey type green as opposed to this deep, dark, almost grey green. But of course, as with all crystals, you do get variations in the shades. And what I was trying to identify here for you to take a look at is that it has this patterning in it. So it's got the patterns and streaks of green. It's got the patterns of mica. Mica, of course, is going to vary in its colour. Sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's white. In this instance, in my crystals, it's kind of a mix between silver and gold, I think. So we might even call it a bit greyish looking. But either way, it caught my eye, and I don't know if it's catching your eye, but we'll talk about it a bit more. And yes, I bought the towers. I didn't buy it as spheres. So what I found was there was very limited and little information online about green mica or verdilite mica. But what I did establish, and I'm using the Zodiac information here in reference to green tourmaline, because green tourmaline is associated with Virgo, Libra, and Pisces, and even Capricorn. Mica, of course, especially if it's gold, is associated with Libra and Pisces too. So we've got a bit of a link and connection there as well. But if you're new to the channel, you won't be aware that when it comes to the Zodiac information, I am a firm believer in it's best to handle a crystal and actually feel if it pulls you and draws you, because that's the way you identify energetically if you need a crystal, if a crystal is meant to come to you for you to work with, or if it's just something you want because it's pretty. And so yeah, for me, you wouldn't let your zodiac or star sign deter you or basically determine what crystals you buy and what you don't, and that goes for green mica as well. So the other bit of information, which much of this is based on my own instinctual guidance, if you like, although I do research and see what other people have put up there. When I hold my green mica towers and look at them, what I feel is that it is connected to the crown chakra, because most of the white crystals do work on the crown. And when we're talking about that, there's a purification of intention, which is where we choose to be responsible with our actions, if you like, and to carry that consciousness of brotherhood and sisterhood, and acknowledge that what we put out there will come back to us one way or another. And if we're working from purity of intent, then in my experience, I feel the universe is actually a lot more gentle when I incur negative karma, because it's generally an error not listening to guidance, but not malicious. So if you're self-serving and malicious, obviously you bring back pretty heavier karma. It comes back and bites you quite quickly and quite badly, in my experience, if you've got questionable intent. So I like to keep my intent as pure as possible. The other thing is, of course, when you've got tourmaline is so associated with the heart chakra. It's an amazing crystal. So it will work on the heart and the higher heart chakra, and we'll talk about that within the metaphysical attributes a little further down the track in this video. Now, one of the things that I talk about a lot when it comes to chakras, and it's not so much shown on the images here, I forgot to mention, when it comes to the crown chakra, quite often it is represented as a beautiful lavender lilac type colour, and other times it's a beautiful white colour. My dog is playing with his squeaky toy at the moment. I think we'll just push on through it as best we can as he runs through the house. The other chakra, which is not represented on this image, is actually the Earth Star chakra, and that one actually sits beneath your feet. It's still part of your more expanded aura, but the Earth Star chakra is what connects and grounds us to basically Gaia energy. I'm jumping a little bit ahead here. But yeah, to the ancient wisdom, the earth wisdom, all of that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a great stabilizer and balancer. So we've kind of got that clue before we even look at the metaphysical properties, and without knowing the mineral information. So it was with the mineral information that I really came up against brick walls, and I've decided to put a lot of it over there to you people, because especially when it comes to sourcing, I thought, look, there's any number of areas and places that you can find green tourmaline, otherwise known as verdilite, or where you can find mica independently. They're both readily available throughout the world. There's lots of sources, but where do you actually get the tourmaline with the mica, or the verdilite with the mica? I don't actually really know, so I would be interested to hear what other people say. But as far as the other information goes, what I did gather was that verdilite, from a hardness perspective, and this is important for establishing how we look after and care for our crystals, is that verdilite is 7 to 7.5, so it's fairly hardy, it's reasonably durable. Mica, on the other hand, is a lot softer, it's only 2 to 4. Now, the reason why I've put the colours here as green, gold, or silver and white is because, obviously if I'm talking about green mica, it's going to have green with it. Mica, of course, can be gold, silver, or white. And in regard to my little towers, they've got white in them as well. And that's not the mica. It could be a white quartz. I'm really not sure, because I'm not a geologist or anything like that. And as far as the transparency goes, well, this is the interesting thing, I think, is I have put on this slide that you're looking at that it's opaque, because when you hold it up to the light, it's not transparent. But upon closer inspection, what I saw was there are some parts within the tower that are clear. And when we look at the mineral, I've got a mineral image further along with the buying tips, and you can see that there is actually another material, and that might be quartz, it might be calcite, I'm not sure. You geos can help us out here, but that has transparency to it. So I've put opaque, but it may even be considered to be translucent in some places. Once again, the answer to the locations, I'm going to have to put it to you guys. So when it comes to the metaphysical overview, it's kind of a little bit easier for this video because I've already done the video on green tourmaline. And so I will put a link to that at the end of this video where you can just click on it. I might even put a link in the description. I forgot to mention that, of course, I've got the timing chapters here, so you can just jump to and from the areas of interest. But in summary and overview, when it comes to tourmaline, the green tourmaline, it is linked to that divine masculine energy, which is the provide and protect aspect, your material well-being, shall we say, your jobs, your ability to put a roof over your head, things like that. Also connecting a person to their higher self aspect. It's about power and protection, channeling of healing energy as well, and a lot of self-mastery involved in that. Now, so you're going to get that with your green mica anyway, those attributes. Then when we talk about mica, mica is actually a fairly good healer, apparently, associated look, I forgot to mention, I haven't actually tried it yet or tested it, but apparently it does give strength and willpower to achieving your goals. And with the green tourmaline and the mica, you've got a double dose of enhancing and activating your psychic gifts, spiritual growth, more self-awareness, recognition of, say, triggers, healthy situations and situations that are unhealthy for you. And did I mention, I think I did, that mica is associated with physical and emotional healing as well. Now, before we look at the attributes a little bit more closely, let's do a bit of a buying rehash, if you like, because if you're a long-term visitor to the channel and you return and watch my videos, these are pretty stock standard. And if I can find information that is unique to a crystal, then I will mention it. But anyway, let's take a look now. So, of course, as always, I like to put up a couple of images that are somewhat different, that aren't exactly the same, so that a person can recognize that, for instance, green mica does come in different patterning, shall we say. You can see the image on the left actually has a layer, and it's got a layer of that clear material that I was talking about in one of the earlier slides. And then, of course, you've got the shades and hues variations as well. But overall, you do tend to get this, it's almost like a streak, like a paint brushes run through it with the tourmaline. And the image on the right here seems to have more of the white than the clear. As I said, I don't know what those materials are, but anyway, we've got a couple of images here. And so then the buying tip would be that, it would be helpful to find out where the sources are, because that way, if somebody's trying to sell it to you, you can turn around and say, well, where'd you find it? And if it's not known to be part of that area, well, then you know that somebody's not got their facts straight. However, if you know that a source of it is, in this instance, green mica, I bought from a Chinese supplier, I need to go back actually and have a conversation with them and say, I think I did, to be honest, that this is actually Chinese green mica. Exactly where it's sourced from in China, I'm not sure. And actually, here's a bit of a buying tip for you. What I understand, and I'm becoming more familiar with the Chinese retailers, and this can potentially be part of the reason why people are dismissive perhaps of a lot of Chinese crystal wholesalers, because they seem ambiguous with their sources. Now, one of my Chinese retailers or wholesalers mentioned to me that in China, historically, if they want to collect crystals, it's just like you or me. We go, I'm going to go rock hunting today, and you go out and you buy them. You don't need a license. Well, you don't buy them. They go out and they find them in the environment, and then they will go into a market. So they have like a market day where they just lay out a blanket and they sit on them, and they just sell them to people passing by. They don't need to have a license to be able to sell these crystals. But what has been happening in more recent times is in certain parts of China, and I may be wrong with this, I'm open to correction, but in certain parts of China, they are now actually putting in requirements such as licenses, where you can only get it if you've got these licenses. And my supplier told me that this was because they're trying to protect the environment, quite possibly, but it also could be because they found a new way to make money, you know. But anyway, where I'm going with this is quite possibly why it's difficult to find the source more precisely of where these crystals are obtained. So then the next thing is that if it looks like it, and I don't know that there would be fraud with it, quite possibly, maybe that would be something that we could talk about if people have got more information, if there's any fakes of it out there. But ideally, if you see it online, and now, of course, I know where there's a number of suppliers of green mica, but they're all from China. The idea would be to obviously do your price comparisons. You've got to look at the weight, you've got to look at the dimensions, you've got to look at the currency conversion, and you have to look at the fees and the any hidden ones, including freight, before you hit that buy button, especially if it's online. You want to be buying from a verified seller if you can, if it's possible. So with me, just sharing with you, I went to make a wholesale purchase the other day, and for the first time I was almost stung quite badly. I got to the checkout and saw that they had added freight at $62 a kilo, which was absolutely ludicrous. So of course I declined the sale. It didn't go through. So that would probably be the best tip. But the other reason why is for example, I got given a link to buy a crystal that was more rare the other day, and it's sold in Europe. And the person that gave me the link mentioned that they considered this person to be one of the cheapest sellers in the country they were in, which is Europe. And of course, it was being sold in euro dollars to start with, and it was quite an exorbitant price, I might add, for Australian. Anyway, I looked at it and I did consider buying it. It actually would have cost me about 300 and something dollars Australian without the freight to get this item into Australia. So from there, I decided to Google within Australia to see if there was anything up there that was compatible, or where I could get, if it was local, because to me it was a crystal that I'd never ever heard of. Anyway, suffice to say, I managed to buy it locally, including freight, for 50 Australian dollars. Was not the same weight, but it was perfect for what I needed and wanted. So those are the kind of things, whether it's green mica or anything else, that it's important to pay attention to. But anyway, now let's take a look at the metaphysical attributes. So I'm not speaking in this video, just to be clear here, we're going to take a look at the spiritual attributes now. What I'm not focusing on in this video is the tourmaline aspect, because it would just make the video too long. We have that in a different video. Please check it out if you want to know the tourmaline. So this is more about the mica. So when you get the green mica, what we've got going on really is in some ways a duplication of the properties of green tourmaline and of mica. But anyway, let's also take into account, when we talk about the attributes, that the energetic properties of mica are going to be different if it's gold or silver. Okay, so for instance, the gold mica is going to be associated more with the practical wisdom of Gaia, the earth energy, and cycles and that kind of thing, while still being feminine and nurturing energy. It would be very empowering, or it is very empowering energy, actually often associated with Kundalini, I might add. Not that, just reflecting on that as I talk, it may actually activate the Kundalini chakra and the Kundalini fire. If you have used it, I'd be interested to hear that. I'm thinking it might do, actually, because of the gold mica. Okay, if it's silver, then it's considered to work with the higher realm. So where Gaia is earth-based energy and practical wisdom, the silver is more masculine. It's more logical. It's more about purification of the mind, shall we say, and aligned with the feminine. And the reason why I say that, so the silver is also aligned to the masculine, but different ways, whereas the silver is also associated with the psychic gifts and the moon. Okay, to try and put this into perspective, it's a very soft, gentle, feminine energy. So you've got that there. But anyway, going back to what we could potentially gain from working with mica is that it does act as an amplifier of other crystals, which in the case of a green mica tower, which is already green tourmaline, that is a strong crystal in itself. So when you connect the mica with it, you're actually amplifying the qualities of tourmaline that lie within, for instance, my tower or your sphere. So that's got to be a good thing. It's believed to balance and align the chakras. I've already mentioned Gaia, the earth realms, ancient wisdom. The nature kingdom is associated with that, and being able to connect to the elementals and the nature divas and all of that kind of thing. It's said to be a crystal that helps to ground and center a person, not suppress. We wouldn't want that happening. Grounding and centering, putting a person, basically, when we're grounded and centered, we're standing in our personal power and we're ready to make a move for whatever change we're looking at. It's considered to be a protector against electronic smog, where you put it beside your computer, or if you've got a small bit, you tape it against your to your mobile phone. Now, I've got to say, that business of taping a crystal to your mobile phone, that's not something I've ever done, because I don't mean to be rude. At the end of the day, I've worked in psychiatric facilities, and I've had, shall we say, clients with big psychiatric issues that used to do it. And after a while, for me, seeing the crystal taped to a mobile phone, I started to think, what have we got going on here? Have we got some significant schizophrenia, shall we say? Anyway, moving on, that was just a personal opinion to put in there. It's also believed to support connecting to your guides and your guardians, and that's about being able to receive intuitive information and advice when you're trying to find solutions and you're looking for that little bit extra. It's said to help connect with it, and also the feelings of love that are associated, that divine and unconditional love that we receive from our guides and guardians. So it's said to enhance that. So when we talk about the psychic intuitive gifts, it can be a case of activating them, or rather enhancing them and building upon them. And if I recall correctly, I think clairvoyance is right up there as one of the ones that will be enhanced. So from a physical perspective, it's supposed to act as an anti-inflammatory, so if you suffer from rashes and redness and that kind of thing, it's going to actually relieve some of that, or, the intestinal problems if you've got inflammation. The other thing is cellular. It's supposed to help with cellular growth and regeneration. If people suffer from eating disorders, the reason I've put it here as physical is because quite often in fact, I would say, and I think I'm right with this, but I don't want to come across as an expert of it. I believe all of our behaviours are a consequence of neural patterning. So if we've got an eating disorder, which is clearly unhealthy for us, then we need to repattern the behaviours, and that involves neural repatterning. When we talk about the brain, it is said to balance the left and right spheres, or I can't remember if that's something that I concluded or believe. One of the things that I've added, because I didn't see much around, really, as I said, it was difficult to find information on the VERDELITE and mica, but my belief is actually it will work really well for headaches and migraines, and that's because I have got some lepidolite mica, and it's just wonderful for headaches and migraines. And because it's associated with the heart chakra, I believe it's going to work well with heart and lung conditions if people suffer from that. Just a reminder, I forgot to mention this, is that big disclaimer: if you have any of these health conditions, you don't withdraw from your medical treatment and use your crystals as a standalone. They're a complement to existing medical treatment, and that is all. All right. I do believe one of the other benefits will be with digestion and waste elimination. And this is because we're talking about the base chakra. So any of the body organs that sit in the chakra area of the body, then that chakra is going to oversee the function of that. So in the case of the base chakra, now that can be represented as red or black. I probably should have mentioned this before. When it's red, I seem to associate that, or my tendency is to associate colours of red with the reproductive system, and more likely the external, and that can be your passion, your libido, and all of that kind of thing. When a crystal has the blackness to it, I associate that with things such as waste elimination and digestion. So that's your anal function, your bowels, if you've got bowel conditions and that kind of thing. So given that when we talk about green mica, it's not directly associated because it doesn't have the black. So just to put this in context, those are general comments that a black crystal will work with the waste elimination and a red, right? But there are always variations to it. So when we look at green mica, we don't actually see black in it, but because it comes down through the Earth star and does the connection to the Earth and Gaia, that's where I have made this leap to digestion and waste elimination. And to some extent, that's a detoxification. And also because we have that centering and grounding aspect to us. Anyway, okay, moving on. It's supposed to be beneficial for people that suffer from the skin conditions. I think I said that. If somebody is recovering from surgical injuries, let's say they've gone in and had an operation, or they've got some wounds that are slow healing, it will support recovery there. And it's believed to support just recovery from general illness, especially when a person's fatigued, to help make that leap forward. So it also offers a fairly diverse range of emotional benefits, and that is emotional intelligence. Now, I've got a video on one of the playlists, the self-help playlist as well, talking about emotional intelligence. And this is the capacity to really understand yourself, know what you need, know what you want, know what your triggers are, know what irks you off, and know how to manage your reactions so that you can create this ongoing internal peace. That becomes what we call emotional self-mastery, where we've got that balance and stability. We can see a conflict and we can address it generally confidently in positive ways, and at the time that the conflict occurs, but at least we have enough self-control, at the very least, to walk away from that scenario, recoup, regather, come back and approach the problem effectively, doing that effective communication. So it's said to enhance that as well. It's also believed to enhance decision making. If you struggle with concentration and focus, it's supposed to support that. So it might be good for students or people that are academics, shall we say, even if they're lecturers or whatever. If you suffer from anxiety, stress and tension, that tends to sit in the higher heart chakra, and so therefore it's believed to help calm and reduce any of those symptoms. Creativity, of course, is a positive one, because that's about identifying problem solutions and being innovative, although of course it can be to do with artistic design, shall we say. So if you're somebody that likes painting or whatever, it might help to expand your imagination. So probably good for writers as well. Also believed to help with inner strength, to bring that inner warrior to the surface, and the determination to see the challenges through to a positive ending. When we meditate with it, it's believed to be very uplifting and to leave a person feeling a bit blissful, if you like, or euphoric, if that's a good description. What else have I got? Just because of the heart chakra connection, it's going to support forgiving other people, even those people that have really let you down and where you felt extremely betrayed. It's going to be letting go of that anger and resentment towards them, having a little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy, and then moving on, So it becomes, in a way, I guess, getting closure, just because I would like to think that a lot of the people that are watching the video here realise that forgiveness is never about saying that the harm that people do is okay. It's never about saying, if you were hurt, that what they did was okay, hurting you. It's about that willingness to just go, it's past, that's not where I am anymore. I'm moving into a lighter, brighter future, and I'm putting that all behind me. That's part of it. I did actually hear somebody say years ago, and I think I've seen it all over the internet now, but this person was the first person that had said to me that, when we hold on to unforgiveness, by the way, just a little tidbit here, this person was actually a criminal and incarcerated, I believe, at the time, if my memory serves me right. And they had said to me, I've worked with all sorts of people, by the way, I've got to have a bit of a sense of humour there. Their point was that, when we don't forgive people for what they've done wrong, it's like swallowing rat poison and hoping that they will be the ones that are hurt by it. You hold on to that anger. The only person that you're hurting is actually yourself. So you've got to stop poisoning yourself, was the point that he was making. Because if you swallow the poison, they're unaffected by it. They've moved on usually, and they have no realization of it. So it's about letting that go and just shifting forward. And so I believe that the green mica would help with that. Funnily enough, I think I've actually talked about the uses as I've gone through this video today, but just to summarize it, if people are jumping from one slide to the next, realistically, I think it would be very good to have a piece in an area where you've got technology, if not directly beside your computer. That's a note for myself as well, because I'm going to get a piece and put it beside my computer, because I spend a lot of time in the office. As for the mobile, I said, look, not for me, but it might be for some people as part of protecting against the electronic smog. It's certainly an interesting ornament and talking piece, and it will obviously spread ambient energy throughout the environment. We discussed the fact that if you meditate with it, that it's supposed to build uplifting mood, make you feel more positive and all of that kind of thing. The only thing that I would actually say here is that finally I remember as I do this video, I've never actually mentioned this before. When you meditate with a crystal and you hold a sphere, you're going to get obviously energy from it. Same as if you're holding it in the raw state, all of that kind of thing, or crystal in the rough. Excuse me while I have a cough. What I have neglected to mention, though, is if you've got a tower or a point, they have a flat base. So just try and get that image in your mind. They've got a flat base. They've generally been cut. And if they haven't been cut, it's a rough base. It's an opening. Whereas it then comes up to a peak and a point. So when we work with these types of crystals, the point is the director of the energy flow. So if you're trying to activate or charge up a chakra, for example, to bring in, say, forgiveness, we just talked about that, to enhance your capacity to hold forgiveness and let go of the past and move on, you would actually hold that crystal pointing at your heart chakra, all right? And that is because the pointy bit is the director. Like I say, that's directing the energy. The open end bit, that's the opening. It stands to reason. So the energy will come through the base of that point and then into your body. The other thing too, I must admit, lying down, this is probably where the gridding comes in. A lot of people like to do that, because if you were trying to meditate with your crystal and sit there, I like to hold crystals pointing down at my crown, okay? So if you're sitting there and trying to sustain that position for 15 minutes holding a point above your crown, it starts to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's better off just to lie down and then put your crystal above your crown that way, and then just go into the meditative state and allow for that energy to come into your body and go to where it is that you have invoked, obviously when you've set your intention to do the meditation. Okay, just moving on here. Of course, yes, if you can find it as jewelry, I haven't managed to find any. I'm sure it would be good at it. It's certainly hard enough to be carved, I would think. But at the same time, not having spoken to anybody, it might be one of those crystals that actually fractures because it's got the mica in it. So it might not make a really good cabochon or something like that. So anyway, let us know if you have used green mica and how you have used it. That would be wonderful. Thank you. If you're new to the channel, you won't know that this slide about being a messenger is because I deliver, obviously, psychic services. And if I've got face-to-face, and in fact, sometimes I'll, if I'm doing online messages or consults, I will actually put my hand into the lucky dip for people anyway. That's what I call it. I've got the bowl of crystals. It's my lucky dip. And so whenever I pull out a crystal or they pull out a crystal, it's always going to be a message that is contextual to the person and the situation. And today when I was thinking about this and doing the transcript, I thought it's not just about that for green mica, it's actually also about the texture and the type of crystal, whether it's got clear stuff in it or whether it's got the white. The colours are really going to influence the message that comes through with green mica. But from a general perspective, I would say, and these are the notes I put earlier, was it's time to step up and take control of your destiny. Step into your power, step into your gifts, embrace them, and choose to purify your intention and to align with divine will through the heart chakra, through the crown. If you've doubted your abilities to be able to open up to this divine guidance, then this is a reminder that the way to step forward is through that love, forgiveness, and compassion, as well as the purity of intent, of course. And the whole thing is, if we make that connecting with our divine support team a primary guide, that allows us to travel through our physical existence, making healthier choices and living with greater peace and joy anyway. So I think that's about all I've got here. Yeah, I think so. What do you think? So this is where green mica towers or spheres or whatever tend to, I think, make things a little bit different. So as I said, a lot of this is built on my going into my own intuitive guidance, if you like. So what I feel is when it comes to caring for the green mica, if it's a tower, if it's polished, if it's a sphere, it should be fine to be washed under the tap. Okay, I mean, obviously you're not going to put it in the freezer. The other thing is too, you would not in Australia put it out in that direct sunlight and leave it out there and think that it's not going to discolor, because it will. I wouldn't expose any crystal to heat if possible, because it's always going to change the way it looks. But when it comes to the green mica, there's a couple of considerations. I have read again and again that mica should not be placed into water. It's not suitable for water immersion, probably not as an elixir. But where I'm going with this is I have a piece of lepidolite mica, and that image on the left here, I'm pretty sure it wasn't labelled lepidolite mica. I think it was called pink mica or something like that. But it's very similar to the lepidolite mica that I have. The image on the right is actually silver mica or white mica. And whether it's silver, pink, whatever, you can look at that and see that there's actually layers there. Now, it's not as fragile, I've got to say, as what we might think when we see it on that mineral thing as being between 2 and 4, because my piece of lepidolite mica I have had for so long, I'm quite prepared to actually buy a replacement. But what I did decide to do, because I'm going somewhere with this, I have used it for many years in a non-prescribed way. And what that is different roles that I had, different jobs, very high stress, sometimes got headaches, sometimes almost blinding headaches that could be perceived to be a migraine. And the other thing is too, if I had a lot of challenges, which I did at different times with family and relationships and that kind of thing, what I used to do as part of my de-stress was actually drop my lepidolite mica in a bubble bath, if you don't mind, with a large piece of rose quartz and a clear quartz point as well. These are non-prescribed treatments. This is not what you would call treating your crystals well. However, I will say that each of those crystals has lasted for years and not suffered from being immersed in the bath with my bubble bath and with my essential oils. And I always found that it was very effective for clearing headaches. So where I'm going with this, the reason I'm mentioning this is, although you're not meant to put it into water, I feel, my gut instinct is, the reason where it becomes an issue is if you've got a lot of that clear, almost calcite, almost druzy in between the layers. Because where my mica has been layered, like the image on the right, I've actually tried to pick some of those sheets off, just seeing how strong it was, really, because I was always under the impression it would eventually break down and basically melt after being in my bath. But anyway, it's done fine. So I've discussed the water immersion bit here. That bit is not going to be a problem with your polished product anyway, because I think you can just do a damp cloth with it. I think from my perspective, if we were caring for you're going to care for it differently if it's in the rough or if it's polished. If it's polished, you can leave it out on your windowsill, no issue. You can just wipe it off if it gets a bit of dust. Not sure about the jewellery side of things because I haven't seen any. And then if it's in the rough, I think you could just hold it under a running tap and just not leave it. So there would be a variation on how I would care for it, because I've learned the hard way through amethyst. All right, and people will go, yeah, whatever. No, don't leave it soaking in water if it's a slab, as we saw in that image with the white crystal inside of it, because it will eventually just splinter and break apart, because that's basically what happened with my amethyst geode. I had a base like a bowl, and because the dust would get into the little points, I decided to put it in the basin that I had and to wash it off, and I left water sitting on top of the points. I know there'll be people everywhere that love amethyst going, you did what? Yes, I did, and it actually fractured in a couple of places. Not really badly, it still works, I still use it, but when you've got a beautiful item, you don't want to destroy it by being foolish with the way that you handle it. So anyway, if you've got thoughts and suggestions, feel free to make the comments, let us know. As I say, the more we share information, the better it is for all of us. Anyway, that being said, I do have videos on how to care for your crystals. I forgot to actually mention there about charging it. I'm just going to say, look, my all-time favourite, selenite rulers, polished selenite works for me. But there are videos. I will put the links in the description and you can go and check them out for yourself. In the meantime, I'm going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Have a wonderful, blessed day, and I shall catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.